Okay, we're back to the 10th gen Accord. I started working on the trunk setup. Put it on a nice little bracket, nice little base, 4-gallon tank. We're gonna do a hardline setup for this. A basic kind of a cool, mid-range, I would say, hardline setup. Not a really crazy, audio trunk setup with LEDs and plexi, and we'll get to that later in the year. I have a couple projects lined up. I'm going to be redoing my trunk setup in the GS with some carbon fiber. So we're going to do some custom 12-inch sub enclosures, which I'm going to overlay in carbon, then I'm going to clear. But for now, we're doing this for Steven, just to get him up and running. I think this is going to be a nice clean setup, which is exactly what he's looking for, featuring the SqueakyClean Air manifold. So I want to sort of touch upon important point. If you look at my previous video, the one that I just did before here, I was talking about how to mount the components. So as you guys can see, this is what I meant by screws protruding through. They have a washer on the other side. I can probably show it to you right here. So there is a washer which keeps a really nice firm base. Same thing over here, you guys can see underneath the manifold mounting bracket. But the bolts are protruding through. So it's really easy for me to remove the compressors if I need to, because this is going to be bolted down most likely on his carpet. I'm going to have it mounted on his carpet, so it's somewhat, that he can still remove it, but he will be able to, so it doesn't move around basically, you know what I mean? But the point I'm trying to make is, this is what I meant by the previous video, where the screw protrudes through. If I was to use the factory black ones that come with the compressor, they would just not be long enough to get through. Right? You want it to go through the actual base, which is a 3/4 board that I covered in sort of like it's like a, what did I get? From Fabricland. It's a material that sort of imitates suede, nice and clean. It goes well with all the carpets, factory carpet. But this is what I mean, and a nice black washer on top, and a nut and bolt going through. So this compressor is solid. It's not going to slide. It's much better to mount them this way as opposed to just putting a self-topper through the wood. It'll eventually loosen up, because these suckers move, right? It'll eventually loosen up and start moving around in your trunk. You don't want to do that. So this is a great way sort of to mount them. And the same thing with the tank. Bolt protrudes through from the bottom. You probably just take my word, it's there. I haven't tightened this one up yet. You can tighten it up, but it goes through. And that way also, if you guys want to remove the tank, you can do it right from the top. You guys don't have to remove the whole board, slide it from underneath. You can literally unscrew it. Don't over tighten these bolts, obviously. You don't need to make them super tight, just enough for it not to move. You can put a locking washer behind there, the ones that are sort of not square, not flat, the ones that are sort of like, I don't have an example of a locking washer here, unfortunately. But instead of the washer being like this, the washer is sort of crooked. And then what that does is it gouges into the actual metal. So that allows it to sit a little bit better. So you can get a locking washer underneath as well here, or on top. I didn't need to use a washer because the bolts I'm using, I believe I'm using, what am I using in my kit? In my kit, I'm using 3/8, 1.5 inch. 3/8 size, 1.5 inch bolts. For the tank, and that allows me to go through the substrate, which is 3/4, and because they're 3/8, is just enough to go through the hole. So a washer is really not required, because it has pretty good coverage area for the nut. So I'm going to tighten that up, but yeah. So I like it. I like it doing like that. I like it going from the bottom and from the top. Same thing for the manifold bracket, because it just makes it a lot easier to remove. You just remove it from the top as opposed to having to lift everything through and disconnect it and remove it. So a lot of the changes could be done sort of right, without removing the whole board. Now, another point that I'm trying to touch, I like to do all my setups on a removable board. And the reason why that is, it's easy to disconnect. Compressors are used, I connect them using butt connectors. This one is a spade, so I'm going to use the positive from the relay to be another spade, so it's okay, we can get away with that one. When I connect them, obviously I tape them so they don't separate, but it also makes it a lot easier to remove because you just remove the bullet and or the spade, and then you can disconnect your compressor. So it really makes the compressor changes a lot simpler than having to remove the whole sort of trunk setup. But if you have to, you can. So just wanted to touch upon that. Just getting ready to do a nice hardline setup for this thing and get it in, and the car is almost done. Stay tuned. All right, so there we go. We did a nice little hardline setup. It looks pretty freaking cool. I didn't want to do hard lines coming out from here, so what we did is we did sort of like the black lines, nice and clean. You get a little bit mix of both, so you got like little black lines going through down, and then you got nice little hard lines going in from the compressors. Kind of little like innovative, different style of bending, kind of a neato, you know, different looking kind of a setup. So yeah, so she's pretty much done. I'm gonna put it in the car, and it turned out really good. Follow me for any other sort of additional line bending videos. Pretty much same principles apply, and this is pretty much it. We're gonna put it in, and maybe I'll get to take it out and do some small little video in the snow. But that's pretty much it for the trunk setup.